Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. Ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum. Today I'm doing a book review. Yes, that's the first in a series of book reviews that I intend to do. I had been looking for a book about Urdu poetry, something that would give me an overview of Urdu poetry. I did not want a particular poet's works, rather a general overview. So I asked a friend of mine, Tanzil, to suggest a book, and he suggested this book. It's called The Taste of Words, an Introduction to Urdu Poetry by Raza Mir. So let's go through this book and see what it's all about and what's good in it and what's not so good in it. I'd like to dedicate this review to a friend of mine from the Association of Bangalore Amateur Astronomers, Ravindra Aradhya, who has been encouraging me to do these videos on Urdu. This one's for you, Ravi. Now, this book introduces many poets. In fact, it has an introduction to around 50 poets and their works. Imagine that, 50 poets. Now that's both good and bad. It's good because you get a very wide overview of Urdu poetry, right from the days when perhaps the language was not even called Urdu, the days of Amir Khusro, through the ages, Bahadur Shah Zafar, Mirza Ghalib, Iqbal, Mir Taqi Mir, Ahmad Faiz, etc. All the way down to the modern Urdu poets who have written for the Indian film industry, such as Majrooh Sultanpuri, Kaifi Azmi, Gulzar, and Javed Akhtar. Raza has translated all the poems that he has included in this book into English, and I think on this count he has done a pretty decent job. His translations are, for most part, very poetic, and it's a pleasure to just read those translations themselves. But that also means that the translation does not follow the original style of the poem, and therefore you tend to miss out the eloquence of the original. Let's go through one such poem and its translation in the book. This is a poem by Bahadur Shah Zafar, who was the last Mughal emperor of India. बात करनी मुझे मुश्किल कभी ऐसी तो न थी, जैसे अब है तेरी महफिल कभी ऐसी तो न थी. ले गया छीन के कौन आज तेरा सब्र करार, बेकरारी तुझे दिल कभी ऐसी तो न थी. उनकी आँखों ने खुदा जाने किया क्या जादू, कि तबीयत मेरी माइल कभी ऐसी तो न थी. And the poem goes on. One thing that I found particularly disappointing, perhaps, at least for me personally, was that the book does not have any Urdu script at all. Urdu script, as you know, is known for its calligraphy, and it's a pleasure to just have a look at that beauty of that of the text itself. But if you don't understand the Urdu script, perhaps you will not miss that too much. Another obvious thing that you come to realize is that Raza clearly has a progressive/liberal bias and a disdain for religious themes. So much so that even for poets such as Akbar Allahabadi or Iqbal, who are known for their religious poetry, he has chosen those poems of theirs which are not connected with religious themes. In fact, in the introduction to Akbar Allahabadi, he writes this: Akbar Allahabadi was a great satirist who unfortunately sobered down and became serious, mystical, and religious. In other words, boring. Of course, he realizes the brilliance of these poets. For both, he has only praise for both Akbar Allahabadi and Iqbal. And he quotes a couplet which I'd like to read. He says, even his conservatism was imbued with wit. Opposing the practice of women renouncing the veil, he composed the following Qataa. बेपर्दा कल जो आई नज़र चंद बीबियाँ, अकबर ज़मीं में गैरत कौमी से गड़ गया. पूछा जो मैंने आपका पर्दा वो क्या हुआ, कहने लगी कि अक्ल पे मर्दों की पड़ गया. Another interesting thing I found in the book and for me personally very pleasantly surprising, was the inclusion of a poet by the name of Brij Narayan Chakbast. He was a lawyer during the Indian freedom movement and a poet at heart. Among the many poems he wrote, his poems on the Ramayana became very famous, and one of those, Raza Mir, has included here. And I found that poem fascinating. It's called Ramayana Ka Ek Scene, and I'd like to read a little bit from that. This poem is about the time when Ram is about to leave his home, his kingdom, and go on an exile to the forest. The conversation that he has with his mother and his mother's responses, those are captured very beautifully in this poem. रुखसत हुआ वो बाप से लेकर खुदा का नाम, राहे वफा की मंजिले अव्वल हुई तमाम, मंजूर था जो माँ की ज़ियारत का इंतज़ाम, दामन से अश्क पोंछ के दिल से किया कलाम, इजहार बेकसी से सितम होगा और भी, देखा हमें उदास तो गम होगा और भी, दिल को संभालता हुआ आखिर वो नौनिहाल, खामोश माँ के पास गया सूरत ख़याल, देखा तो एक दर में है बैठी वो खस्ताहाल, सकता सा हो गया है यह है शिद्दत मलाल, तन में लहू का नाम नहीं जर्द रंग है, गोया बशर नहीं कोई तस्वीर संग है. Of course, no book on Urdu poetry can avoid including Mirza Ghalib, the giant of Urdu poetry. Writing about Ghalib, he says, what makes Ghalib so unique? Like Shakespeare in the English dramatic tradition, he has now been studied so much that all his poetic output has been subjected to the full glare of scrutiny and plumbed for metaphorical hints and allegorical subtext. What made his poetry great was its simultaneous accessibility and impenetrability. He could write the most playful verses about mangoes and the most opaque verses about the nature of existence. Let's read one of his poems. हज़ारों ख्वाहिशें ऐसी कि हर ख्वाहिश पे दम निकले, बहुत निकले मेरे अरमां लेकिन फिर भी कम निकले, निकलना खुल्द से आदम का सुनते आए हैं हम लेकिन, बहुत बेआबरू होकर तेरे कूचे से हम निकले,
मगर लिखवाए कोई उसको ख़त तो हमसे लिखवाए,
हुई सुबह और घर से कान पर रखकर कलम निकले, मोहब्बत में नहीं है फ़र्क जीने और मरने का, उसी को देख के जीते हैं जिस काफिर पे दम निकले. This book also includes a very useful introduction to the various forms of Urdu poetry. Reading from the back cover of the book, it says, have you ever been enchanted by the spoken cadence of an Urdu couplet, but wished you could fully understand its nuances? Have you wanted to engage with a Ghazal more deeply but were daunted by its mystifying conventions? Are you confused between a Qataa and a Rubai, or a Musaddas and a Marsiya?
I'm sure you have not even heard those words before.
So these are the various forms of Urdu poetry. So all in all, I think this is a great book. If you are looking for an introductory book that gives you a wide overview of Urdu poetry and you don't understand the Urdu script, then this book is for you. The paperback version of this book is available on Amazon for about 300 rupees. Hope you found this review useful. I will continue to review more books that I have read. So until next time, Khuda Hafiz.